We do have ladies plural.
Did she see it?
You're all set, thanks.
Oh, dear.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 1, 2022 meeting of the Orangetown Plan and Zoning Commission. I am Commissioner Ozzie Parenti.
Tamara Trantalis, Administrative Assistant.
Paul Kaplan.
Kevin Cornell.
Judy Smith.
Jack Demergen, Zoning Administrator.
Okay, thank you. We don't have Commissioner Tarenti joining us this evening. He's a little under the weather. Paul, it's good to see you back. We missed you at the last meeting. I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, it's coldish.
Yeah, all right, good. All right, we have a pretty light agenda this evening, so we might as well get right to it.
Soon.
Almost.
Come on,
Almost.
7:10.
I actually saw that.
Oh, yeah, he texted in.
Oh, I did.
He texted to adjourn.
All right, first item, review the minutes from the January 18, 2022 meeting. Has everyone been able to print off a copy of those? Yeah. I had a few questions or comments on page 3. Does anybody have anything before that? Page 1, 2. All right, I'll give my changes. The second full paragraph on page 3. The first line reads, Chairman Parenti stated that the commission should review these regulations in the future. He stated that if the commission approves this application, and I would add, as a special use, it will set a precedent. Because we were talking about the possibility of approving an application for the project as a permitted, or use permitted as of right. So my concern was setting a precedent for, approving the application as a special permit. And then in that same paragraph, it says if she applies under retail, the application could be approved administratively, and again, I would add, as a use permitted as of right. So I think
In
that's
that
what,
district, yeah.
I think that's what we were talking about, yes, in that district. And just one more comment. The second to last full paragraph, the paragraph begins after a brief discussion. You go down to, let's see, about 5 lines down, and the sentence says, this application does not comply with the regulations. I would say with section 383-50F of the regulations. Because again, that was our focus on, that was the regulation under which she brought her application, and it was our reading of that regulation that caused us to deny the
Have a conundrum.
application. It was a conundrum, yeah, definitely. But that's all I had. Anybody else?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second that motion.
Motion's been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And Paul abstains. All right. Anybody have anything under the topic of old business that they wish to bring up? Jack, I noted in the minutes that you were going to look into Firelight. Anything? Were you able to get a hold of anybody on that?
Yeah, I spoke with the building inspector actually, and he told me that they were looking, or got in touch with one of the guys, the developer. They're looking to start sometime mid to late February. They still have to post bonds. But sorry, Chris. Yeah.
But it's imminent.
Yes. Yep. They are not looking to waste any time.
Okay. Good. Glad to hear that. Any-
When was it approved? Firelight?
Had to be at least
year
6
ago.
months ago. I mean, I feel
Yeah, at least 6 months ago.
Okay.
It was-
I don't know about a year, but
No,
possible.
no, not a
It's
year. I think it was
possible.
mid last year.
Yeah.
We met
okay.
outside here.
Right, there was
Yeah,
the
it was-
appeal and,
Mid to early last year. I will get an approval date to you.
and it's not, just,
All right. Honestly, I might be
My
able
ears
to.
perked up when you said they didn't want to waste any time.
right. All right, anything else under old business? All right, the rest of our agenda this evening, item number 3 is new business. And I think Jack's gonna walk us through
Sure.
those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. These 3 items that we have listed here are the option or the topics that we have the ability to opt out of for the new state legislation for land use that came out late last year. The first one being temporary healthcare structures, which give a caregiver or a mentally or physically impaired person the ability to construct a secondary structure on a residential lot that allows either the caregiver or the individual in need of care the option to use that as a secondary dwelling.
So
on
it
that
doesn't
lot.
anticipate or mandate a connection between the residents. It can be a totally separate structure.
Completely
We're
separate.
talking about separate septic
Separate-
water, septic.
It actually, it does go in on, we may require access for emergency vehicles and connected to private water or septic systems that service the primary use. So they could essentially splice into the electric service and the septic for the primary dwelling on that property.
But
But either way, it contemplates this is a totally separate unit.
Yes,
Living
it could be
structure.
completely
And-
detached.
And once, not to be morbid about it, but once the need for the separate unit is no longer there, then what happens?
They are supposed to be renewed every year.
still,
Post person passing away or dying or
Right.
Okay, not that I'm anxious to have that happen, but what happens to the structure is now a permanent structure.
We hold the right to revoke the permit if it's either not renewed or they no longer meet the requirements laid out here.
So my question is, who goes in there? Is it for not a 65-year-old person? It could be a
It
third.
could be either the caregiver, so anybody qualified to be a caregiver for this mentally or physically impaired person, or it could be the person needing the care in that unit as well.
Jack.
And the primary dwelling could be,
Temporary healthcare structure, paragraph 3B, has one occupant who is the mentally or physically impaired person.
I
So
saw
it's
that-
not for the caregiver.
last time I spoke with Vinny, it was for either of them. And I read that as well, but he made it clear that it was for either the mentally
Well,
impaired
it
person.
just has one occupant, doesn't mean
occupant.
there may be more than one occupant in the structure, one of which has to be
I know it is also listed in here.
Okay,
being cared for,
right.
Okay, and
right? It just says has one occupant who is
what you mean, one of
mentally or
others?
physically impaired. There could be others. There could
Yeah.
be 5 other people in there theoretically.
Right, but I think during our initial conversation with Vin, it was clear that either or the carer or the caregiver, or the person in need of the care,
So
can live in this
I'm
building.
still trying to get stuck on how do we handle it as a town after the caregiver or the needing person
Need is
is
gone.
gone, finished. They either sold or they died or whatever it is. Now we got 2 structures on the property.
Well, they're supposed to be temporary structures. So temporary means a transportable residential structure that provides an environment in which a caregiver may provide care for a mentally or physically impaired person. So
With
they're
a
ideally
septic
prefab.
and running water.
And electricity.
Right.
Sounds so temporary to me. Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
That might be why
Well-
we're contemplating opting out.
yeah, I'm thinking.
I mean, the only thing that suggests it's temporary is that it's a trailer basically. You know,
It's a trailer.
It doesn't, but a transportable residential structure,
That's what it would have to be.
a trailer. And then it says,
Doesn't mean
which
it
is
has to,
primarily
Wheels
assembled,
on it after it gets there.
Can drop it.
primarily assembled at a location other than the site of installation.
Now I'm thinking modular home or something.
Yeah.
Well, they could do that. They could bring in a double wide, like, you know, or a single wide trailer home.
Like they did at
Put the
the,
little skirt around the
oh,
bottom.
you mean like at the high schools when they had to do the temporary
the,
classrooms?
the
I mean, those
Jewish,
were basically structures.
Construction
All right,
trailers.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's our anticipation that after it's needed, then it would be taken away.
Well, it says they've got 120
Days
days to
afterward?
remove it.
All right.
Paragraph H. 3H.
Got it.
The, go ahead.
No, so I was just gonna say, so I mean, we're not determining whether we think it's a good idea and putting it to
No,
a vote
no.
tonight. All we're doing is saying whether we want this to be applicable, whether we want to send it to a public hearing where we can hear testimony from the public,
Yep.
and then after, hearing that testimony, discuss the pros and cons, and then
Yep.
make a decision as to whether we want to be governed by that law. I mean, that is our option.
Right, we have the opt-out option of a 2/3 vote here,
Right.
posting a legal notice in the paper, and then we refer it to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out.
The parameters of the regulation.
And has Vinnie opined as to whether there is the third option of accepting it with modifications?
He has-
Or is it in and or out?
I think it's in or out, and we would have to modify any of our regulations that would be in conflict with this.
Okay.
It just seems so odd that, state law would lay out all these requirements and then say, well, you can be bound or not.
Well, that's step one. What's step two?
I don't know.
Right. I think the
When
anticipation is,
150 towns say no, it went out.
Then you step up the pressure.
right, I think the anticipation is legislation like this is going to become a yearly thing now, where they're slowly gonna work that in, where these opt-out options aren't as usable, and, in X number of years, we might not even be allowed to opt out anymore. That seems to be the direction we're moving.
There's no, is there even a requirement that because I saw in the accessory apartments, there was a limitation placed on the size of the accessory unit. It couldn't exceed the size of the primary unit, but I don't even see that here.
Right, I don't believe there was a size restriction or even language referring to what we were saying before, what kind of structure. I mean, it says temporary, it could be transportable, assembled off-site, brought onto site, but,
And
It says-
removable within 120 days.
right, but
says
yeah,
no
they
more than
leave a lot
one.
of that open.
Yeah,
But
but it's
it-
only governed by the bulk regulations,
What's that?
It's only governed by the underlying zone's bulk
So the
regulations.
setbacks
Is it-
would apply?
is
or
it-
wouldn't?
Setbacks apply
Does it
and
say
lot
that?
Yes.
coverage applies.
All right.
Yep.
Where did you see that? Because I was looking for that.
B, shall comply with all, sorry, shall comply with all
Yes,
setback
yep.
requirements,
Oh, all
coverage
right, good.
limits,
Yeah, okay.
maximum floor area ratio
Yeah.
limitations.
Yeah.
Okay. That helps.
But if somebody's on a big lot, 3-acre lot with
Right.
plenty of room, they could build or deliver a portable,
Caregiver's gonna live in stock.
Right,
or a bunch of caregivers.
of no specified size.
As long as one person who needs the assistance is
I
also.
mean, it could be a
living with them.
caregiver and his or her family
Yeah,
living there.
no, it'll be an interesting public hearing. I think we
Yeah.
should set it up.
All right, can we vote on these, or should we vote on them separately, or,
Voting,
well, vote to send it to a public hearing, or do you need that vote?
I don't think we could. We could vote on all of them separately. I don't think we need to vote to send them to a public hearing. I think we just put these on here to let the public know that we are considering these topics and are planning on putting it to a public hearing, but I don't think we need an official vote. If you'd like one,
Because the state requires a public hearing.
Well,
Right.
it would be under J, right? It's actually the municipality votes.
Well, that's if we're voting, let's say if we were to decide to opt out,
Yeah.
we would be voting in a public hearing to opt out.
All
We
right.
don't need to vote to send it to a public hearing. We could just, like any other public hearing,
Schedule it.
schedule it, notice it.
Notice it.
Okay, well, then are we of a, I mean, I take it we're of a consensus that we ought to hold a public hearing on it.
I mean, if you think taking a vote is a good idea, then we certainly should. I mean, there's no harm in that.
Well, why don't we do that? I mean, just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, is somebody prepared to move that we,
Want to wait till,
Do them all?
I'll move that we move to public hearing or have a poll to public hearing on the temporary healthcare structures, new section 8-1BB.
all right, we have a motion.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
All
So
right.
you'll schedule that public hearing
Yeah.
ASAP.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Item number 2, this is the accessory dwelling units section, which quite honestly is a lot like the temporary healthcare structures, except it has nothing to do with healthcare. It's that a accessory apartment means a separate dwelling unit that is located on the same lot as a principal dwelling unit of greater square footage, B, has cooking facilities, and C, complies with or is otherwise exempt from any applicable building code, fire code, health and safety regulations. So this is essentially, long story short, you can put an accessory unit anywhere on your lot that does meet setback, bulk requirements, things like that, on a residential lot.
Right now, Orange allows accessory units in a very limited amount of time, right? It's age,
Right, and they have to be part of the primary dwelling. These can be
Right.
detached. So an accessory, right, an accessory structure can be a dwelling under this legislation.
Basically, it can be a
Short-term rental.
separate second house
on the same property.
on the
Yeah.
same
On the same
property.
property. It doesn't have to have any relation to the property owner.
Shall not be required to be served by separate utilities.
Shall, read that, Judy? again?
Got a couple of these right now for Bethany, one in Brentwood Bridge, one in Bethany.
I know there's one in Woodbridge.
Yeah.
Regulations shall not require ADUs to have an exterior door.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get in and out?
Tunnel.
Window.
Helicopter.
No roof.
So, Paul, you're aware of some in some other towns in Ozzy. What is the purpose? Rental income or?
well, in the one in Woodbridge, there was been in the family for a number of years, and brother and sister didn't want to have the same address, and they needed two separate structures, and they built them on the same lot. Okay.
I think the idea behind it is making it easier to offer alternative housing opportunities. Because now
Yeah.
any single-family lot is now open to be more than a single-family lot.
What does that do?
The septic issues, in other words, does that increase the number of septic units based on number of bedrooms, right?
Well, it's not, it seems silent, but you would think that, you know, the ability to regulate public health and safety would allow you to have a septic system that would accept the flow from the number of bedrooms, which I think is how you size a septic system.
Bedrooms is,
Almost every one that I know of, especially new construction, only sizes it to the number of bedrooms that is in that main house.
Yeah, but every one that's approved has a reserve area, and the state will probably force you to
For,
use it.
right, but I'm talking about even the tank, right?
Yeah, but it's more the disposal field that's the controlling factor usually.
So the tank doesn't have any, because usually they say,
It's usually a stilling tank that's about 1,500 gallons.
Right.
1,250.
Yeah, 12, it's 12 or 1250 for 4, and then
3 or
Yeah.
4,
3 or 4,
yeah.
The controlling factor is the size of the leaching field afterwards. So since everything's already designed with a reserve, you know, you're just, you know, would be eating into your future ability to replace your system. If they forced you to do it.
As
Orange's housing stock is not exactly the newest housing stock. I would think that that would be a factor. But that's just me. Anyhow,
Yeah, that's another,
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
another spirited public hearing.
Yep.
should be, you know, it's,
So moved.
I mean,
Yep, let's go.
our regulations call for, you know, a residential lot with one residential dwelling. It's, you know, it's,
Just a change.
yeah,
Little
I
bit.
mean, it's an entirely different story.
All right, so we're gonna put this to a public hearing?
I would say, I would feel that way.
Yeah.
so I so move that the accessory dwelling unit found in number 2, I don't know what to say, in section 8-2D5 be put to a public hearing.
All right, we have a motion to send this to a public hearing.
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the third item, Jack.
On to the third and last item. This is referring to parking in the residential zone. I think this kind of goes hand in hand with the accessory dwelling unit legislation.
Of course.
Really not a ton of it is going to apply to us, but the part that I highlighted about halfway down the page requires that zoning must not require parking in excess of 1 space per studio or 1-bedroom unit, or 2 spaces for larger housing units unless a municipality opts out. The only section of our regs that it doesn't currently meet that is highlighted for 1 dwelling unit or 1 unit dwelling structures. We currently require 2 parking spaces. So it would reduce that to 1. Which again seems like it was kind of meant to go hand in hand with that accessory dwelling unit.
Well,
Language.
actually, wouldn't there actually be 2 dwelling units then
Right.
on the
Right.
lot, and then the 2 still applies?
Oh, that's, yeah,
It's a
2
good
for
point.
each. Right.
Well, Oz?
I'm sorry, if you allow an accessory dwelling unit, there's a parking requirement for that and a parking requirement for the existing dwelling unit.
No, there'd be 2 units on the lot, so it'd still just be 2 parking spaces, right?
It does say 1 unit dwelling structures. So being that it
1 unit
maybe
per
it's a
dwelling?
detached structure, could it be considered different? I think these are the questions that they specifically didn't address.
I mean, this is a little less interesting, but still.
Yeah, if you had 4 kids like I did, you had 6 cars on your
Right,
lot.
and a couple
So-
pickups.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
Pickup trucks.
Making a separate structure and being able to run to it, not bad.
Yeah, true.
I mean, the way I look at this, I'm satisfied with our regulations. I don't know that we need to be governed by anybody else's.
Or once you send it to public.
A public hearing, though, we can still opt out if we want to.
We can-
Does the
Right.
opt-out language here?
Yes, these 3
All 3
options
are
are
opt-outable.
opt-out.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Right, because I
Which is
think
why I
that's
think
the-
they did this with the ADUs, because if you opt out of one, then it really would make sense to opt out of the other.
So if we vote not to send it to a public hearing, we've voted not to opt out, and the state law applies.
Correct.
So, yeah,
So I think we want to at least send it to a public
Public hearing,
hearing and then make a
take an
determination
action.
of whether we want to opt
Right.
out or not,
I think that's a good idea.
just like the
that's the
other.
procedure
Right.
to follow. Yep.
Okay. All right, I'll move that we hold the parking public hearing as well.
All right, we have a motion to send the parking matter to a public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's Been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Jack, you have anything else?
Yeah, I got some small stuff. First is the SCROG representative. We need one.
Didn't I get out of this?
Yeah.
You almost got back into it by not being here last
Yeah.
week.
I think you guys voted me in.
We did.
No, we waited to do that in front of your face, but we are.
We made the decision while you were absent.
What day? What
It is
Let's
the
vote.
second Thursday of every month at 5:15.
All right, so
Here was my problem with this as it was 10 years ago. I teach on Thursday nights. Now, for the last 2 years, they had less clientele, students for the first semester. So it was only one semester that I was doing at Newark Community College. So that was my problem during the last several years, which is why I was looking to opt out and have somebody else step up for me.
Tommy?
So we sent it to a public.
Oh, Tommy.
Okay.
Tommy mentioned to me that he was interested. I vaguely remember
How
this.
excited he was to get this opportunity.
I,
so my sure.
I'm sure they wouldn't.
I don't
Are
know
they
if I could
are they
commit to
Zoom
it
now?
overnight.
Are these meetings?
They do have a Zoom option. The meetings shall be held in the offices in North Haven with opportunities to participate remotely, which, from what I gathered from my conversation with Eugene, who's our rep here, most people
are
do it
Zooming.
remotely.
Okay.
If that helps anybody.
Can we share the burden in some way?
I
Rotating.
think so. I'd be happy
Can
to
we
ask.
rotate?
Yeah, I'd be happy to ask if we could
Would
possibly
everybody be willing to
rotate.
do that? Take one meeting every 4 or 5
Oh, I thought you
weeks?
meant two people like that side of the table. Like Paul and Tommy.
Quiet for that, I think.
We're very busy on this
Yeah,
side of the
I would be
table.
happy to ask.
He's not going to step up right here. I'll be.
Well, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is if we each took a meeting. But,
They really are quite fun.
or if Paul took half of the meetings and the rest of us took the other, shared
That
the
might
other
work.
half. Or something along those lines. Is it, can you find out if?
I'm sure
Yeah,
they're,
I'd be
they're
happy
gonna
to
want
ask
the
if we
continuity,
could.
but
Yeah,
that's the best
I'm
we
not quite
can
sure
do.
if there's rules on that, but I'd be happy to ask and
I'm
see
sure
if.
there are.
If not, I can certainly do the.
Spring from January through August.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's significant.
All right, so we'll table that one.
Tabling it.
Yeah. If we keep
I
tabling it,
could
nobody has to do
right,
it.
November, December.
Vin is in the process of drafting up some outdoor dining regulations that would bring us into compliance with the new legislation. I spoke about Firelight.
That'll go to
197.
a public hearing as well.
Yep.
Right. Yep. 197 Indian River. They are still framing. I know a lot of the units have already been sheetrocked and insulated. I think they're doing some of their fire-rated caulking, things like this. Is from the building department.
Is this the continuing care community?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Up
This
on the
is
hill.
Orange Senior Living. That's what they call it. So that is moving right along. There was one other.
How about the pool?
The pool. I have not heard anything about the pool yet. I'd be happy to.
What was it about? They were going to get renovated or something?
No, the pool, the,
The,
new business coming to town.
The swimming school. Yeah.
Next door to the axe throwing.
Yes.
Is there a connection or something?
Pool school. All right. I got in touch with the developer for 329 Smith Farm Road. They are, which is the living.
Yeah.
Yep. They're hoping to get started in June. Really jumping for May, but I think it's going to take them until June. I think they're getting their funding figured out.
How many years?
That was
44?
46.
Gonna say
I think.
50.
Yeah, a little under 50.
That's a nice little vertical development.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Nice project.
Yeah. And I had one other thing. Oh, and then just a reminder on February 24th at 6 p.m. we have that housing meeting with SCROG. which I will have to schedule a special meeting for, just obviously because we're going to have quorum for that meeting.
Yeah.
So I will get an agenda out for that.
All right. Okay,
Other than that, I got nothing.
all right, very good. Anybody, questions for Jack, or?
Is this sign gonna be spelled right? Your name? I'm just kidding.
It's new. That you got me because it's new. I was like, I could have sworn I checked that.
All right, well, that concludes our agenda then.
I'll move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Second, anybody?
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor? Aye. None
Sorry.
opposed.
All right, girls.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.